Big up, keep on moving, keep Spicemas alive.
And we are back inside the ladies' room for another edition. And of course, this is the Spicemas edition, teaming up with the Spicemas Cooperation as they celebrate their 10th anniversary. So this week we'll be talking all things Carnival. On Monday we had the CEO and the current chair of the Spicemas Cooperation. Yesterday we had Jennifer Woodruff and of course Ponty. It was a fantastic pan conversation indeed. Thoroughly enjoyed, and lots of you who were on expressed the same sentiment, and we are looking to do the same again this morning, because in our company today we have Mr. Hugh Dolland, Silvan Chan, and of course Elimus Gilbert, the inspector. I'm going to introduce them to you shortly, but in the meantime, just want to welcome everyone on board the live, and if you're just joining us, hit the share button because we are talking music and Carnival this morning. All right, and that is definitely a favorite part of Carnival, so anticipating your participation as always, so just hit the share button and give other folks an opportunity to be part of it. All right, but before we jump right into it, again we have to say special thank you to our wonderful partners for making it possible this morning. Our friends at Sissons Paints, also George F. Huggins and Company Limited, Western Union, Beacon Insurance, Ariza Credit Union, and of course the Spicemas Corporation for making this possible. Alrighty, so without any further ado, and as we get you guys settled in to enjoy another wonderful conversation with our guests this morning, just hit the share button and come right on in. Let me get them up on the screen. There we go. Alrighty. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you this morning? How's everyone?
Very well.
Fine, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning to viewers and the listeners.
Alrighty. So, what we're gonna do?
Viewers and listeners of all.
Yeah, you're always on the back end, all right, Inspector? Always on the back end. That you inside. Yeah, so Inspector is joining us from New York City. Good to have you on board. So this morning, like I said, we are looking at the music of Carnival. We touched a little bit on Monday, but I forgot to mention Ali Gill was also a guest on Monday. My apologies. We touched a bit on that, but this morning we're going to go a little bit more in depth with the conversation. So let me just jump in with our guests, and they'll tell us a bit about themselves and their involvement with this different genre of music in Spicemas. We're going to start off with Silvan Chan, and then we'll make the rounds across the room, and we continue the conversation. So, Mr. Chan,
yes, well, as you mentioned, Silvan Chan, a director on the Spicemas Corporation Board. I represent the musical aspect of things, calypso, and responsibility for groovy and super.
We want more. How long have you been a part of the whole Spicemas experience and music and everything?
Well, of course, I would have started with Carnival, the whole aspect of Carnivals, approximately 15 years ago, prior to the introduction of Spicemas. I was involved at the production level. I'm still involved in some aspect at that level. So I've been around for a while, and here I am today, representing the board as a director.
Alrighty. Mr. Dolland?
Yes, well, I've been actively involved in Carnival. I've always been a lover of Carnival. I've participated, I've played mass with a number of the well-known mass bands in the early 60s. I'm a co-founder of the Bolio Calypso Rama Tent, which started in 1969. I sang calypsos. I was also a finalist in 1973, the Mashkra competition. I placed third. Unlucky was second, and Goldust. Unlucky won the crown that year, and Goldust was second. I came third. The prize money at that time, I got $200 for third position and a nice little trophy. And I was contented with that. I should mention, however, that during that period, the same Calypso-Rama tent at Bolio, we were paying the Calypso-Rama king of Bolio more than the national Calypso-Rama tent. More than the Mashka, the national Calypso king, a monarch at the time, would have received. In addition to that, I chaired the 1986 Carnival Committee, and I also was chairman of the Cultural Foundation around 2010, somewhere in that region, under Minister Ali Hill.
I never knew you sang calypso. I swear, I never knew that. So that's a
Really?
bit of news for me too. Someone says, "Welcome to the Manikou."
I must make one of my CDs available to you.
You have to. You definitely have to. Someone on the live is also saying you've been there since the devil was a little boy.
That's right.
So you're definitely a good person to speak to in terms of Carnival and all the strengths and where we started as to where we are right now. So we will definitely get a lot out of you this morning in terms of history and of course information. Elimus Gilbert, the inspector. Well, you have a long.
And I go make it short. One of Grenada's greatest entertainer, entertaining over 30 years now. And I'm sorry, Mr. O'Donnell. Oh, sorry, I was not wrong in Mr. O'Donnell's time, so I could have put some nice little licks on it.
The mighty Manikou. People who would
The mighty Manikou. I would have dealt with Manikou. I would have dealt with Manikou so dread.
If that was the case, you might not have been referring to yourself as one of the greatest.
I like that.
So,
I like that. And I would also like to say, when I came in the business in 1985, Mr. O'Donnell was one of them that paid me. When I say that, I hand me price money. I remember he had a business right in town, and I used to be there all the time, downstairs and upstairs. What was the name of the store again? Mr. O'Donnell, right in town?
Today's Wonders.
Today's Wonders. Always remember that. And my paycheck around them time was 500. So when you say two, are they doing the mathematics with me head road?
200.
Oh, yes.
In those days, 200 was a big deal.
Yeah, a little 500 and up, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's talk about, the history of the music of Grenada's Carnival, Calypso as the base, and how it has evolved into other genres like the groovy and the soca part of it. Chan.
Well,
we could go with Chan first. Chan, you could go ahead.
yes. Well, as you know, the common or the most popular music back then, we're looking at somewhere around the 80s, 90s, just prior to the change to Spicemas, we were more focused on the calypso. Two calypsos, the March Gras. You had the first rung and the second rung. You had the first rung with the hard biting lyrical calypsos. Then the second rung, you come to the sort of more party like hype atmosphere. And within that structure, you still find some soft, kind of music, but more of the party like type of music. That would have changed with the introduction of the soca monarch. That's when you created the hype, and then you had a lot more hypes. I can't remember the exact year that took place, but I know that happened. Then we went into the soca monarch, and then what we noticed then is that you had some aspect of the soca that was a bit, what we call groove, nice music to just mellow. And there comes the groovy aspect of things. So, that basically lends to the transformation, guys wanting to primarily focus on the hype. There were artists who only want to deal with the hype music. There were artists who deal with both hype and calypso, and there were artists who also want to deal with the groovy aspect of things. And that is how the three different three different stages of competition came into being.
Mr. Dolland, in terms of when you were there, and of course you participated, you weren't just, behind the scenes, you were an active participant on the stage and all of that. Your thoughts on the music from then to now? the evolution and into the groovy and the soca and where we are using
Yeah,
calypso as a
well,
base.
yeah, I glad I'm happy you started off with Chan, and I'm sure Inspector will pick up on the slack because in terms of the groovy and the soca and what have you, I that has this is far more recent than my time. Um, Calypso, as we knew it at the time, basically there was always a message in the song. And the most important of all, we clearly understood the importance of providing entertainment. So while you would have had, you would have a few, um, I would say, social commentary, political commentary, a lot of it was entertainment. Up tempo, or it could be whatever the pace, but at the same time, you wanted to ensure that you catered for everyone. And persons didn't have a fear of going to the tent because they may be humiliated or embarrassed by what the calypsonian, would sing and whatnot. We were mindful of the fact that a lot of children would come to the tent accompanied by their parents. And as a result of that, we want to make sure that everybody would feel comfortable with the content, the lyrical content of the calypso. And we did this very, very, very successfully. I mean, as I said before, we used to charge $1 was the entrance fee.
Oh, wow.
And I could recall in 1973 when we went down to CSA Center. It was the first time the Calypso tent moved into St. George's. And the show was supposed to start at 8. And by 7:30, there was only standing space. And we had to close the door long before 8 o'clock. We had a sold-out crowd. And the point is, it was very popular at the time. But most important of all, the Calypsonians, we worked as a team in order to ensure that the product that we were presenting to the public was saleable. So it was not a matter of us just, I having a good calypso. I would listen to what the other guy is saying and I would make some suggestions and we would sit down together and we would, arrange and make changes to others without any hard feelings, despite the fact we were competing against each other. But we understood the importance of having a saleable product, and people coming to the tent must be able to enjoy themselves. And that is basically where the focus lies. Unfortunately, over the years, we have not been hearing much calypsos on the radio. And as a result of that, it is impossible for that art form to continue to grow and develop if the younger ones are not exposed to it. And we know that there are a number of persons out there who still support and love the art form. And it's very visible when you look at Legends show with Godfrey Augustine, and you look at the Masters of Calypso with Nicholas Mitchell, in terms of the support that they get. So we have a lot of lovers out there, but unfortunately, they are deprived the opportunity of being able to really enjoy and reminisce on the good old calypsos because they're not hearing it on the radio station. So that is an area I would hope that, the Ministry of Culture, the SMC, and what have you, I think they have to, Cultural Foundation, try to engage more of these radio stations to see how best they can get them on board to continue to play, because we do have some very, very good calypsos. And I think, unfortunately, they're not heard. And then, so there is a good reason as to why the art form is dying. But I think a lot can be done to, bring it back to life.
I agree. Inspector, before we bring you in, also the fact that, some might think, okay, well, the calypso is only for a particular age group. But when we have the likes of Baraka and Valley Ned and, younger artists getting involved in calypso, to me, Og as well. But there seems to be more that needs to be done in terms of garnering more interest in that particular area, because you'd have somebody, an artist, and immediately they're into the soca, the jumper part of it, the more the power soca sort of things, because they, according to them, there's market for that. They can get booked for an event outside of Carnival or outside of Grenada, and that is more viable. It's a more viable option than that of calypso. Inspector, Your thoughts on it from then to now. Your involvement, of course. You started off with the one song, and then we branched into the groovy and the power part of it. Your thoughts?
Well, when I came in 1985, I will tell you that the people was serious about lyrics. I will touch on that. Even though you're singing a smut, you have to tell a story. It was storytelling back then, and they were serious about lyrics. Today, the generation concerned more about the beat, the hype. They will listen to the beat before the message. And you have to tell a story back then. And if you insult the intelligence, they deal with you. Seriously, they deal with you. Whether they bow you down the stage or they, whatsoever. But it was different when I came in. Different. And then the March Gras was the biggest thing. First round, a nice social commentary, nation building or whatsoever the Calypsonian choose. Second round was the hype. We used to call it Cambule. And a lot of people who stayed home for the first rounds and cook. By 11, 12 o'clock, they heading for Queen's Park for the second round. We got the second rounds of mass, up tempo with message. Yeah? And then we never had groove in them time, but over the years, it changed. The groove came in, and even the Soca Monarch. The Soca Monarch started in 1993. First Soca Monarch ever was in Sugar Mill. Then the association took it over in 94. So if you ask them the history of the Soca Monarch, they will tell you the fourth one was in 94 in Queen's Park. That's when the association took it over and Black Wizard won. But Brian Pitt started Soca Monarch in Grenada. I want to make that clear in 1993, and I won that competition with Eating Better. Second was Jap, and third was Flying Cloud. And then we came into the groovy. Now, groove used to struggle. And over the years, all that changed. At the time, groove gets so big that people wanted groove to have its own show. But they merged groove and Soca Monarch. So I started changes from storytelling to hype right now, a different generation that they focus on the beat more than storytelling. And it changed so much that in my era was band chorus, a nice storytelling verse, 3-4 verses, but band chorus before the next one. Right now, it's just rhythm and back to back. So I saw it all.
Now, over the years, we've seen a number of different organizations. We've seen like calypso associations. We've seen different tents. We've seen, a lot of changes over the years. How would you, what if you were to rate it, Chan? What would you say? Did they work in the favor of what we have now, or did they work against it in terms of the development?
In terms of development, if you want me to give you a rating, I would say honest assessment, it probably is not where it should be, right? Which should probably give it a very low rating. I do believe that there should be much more dialogue and much more involvement with the association and Calypsonians in general. I mean, of course, not all the Calypsonians, neither the soca or the groove artists are involved in an association. However, we do listen to them. But I do believe that there should be a much more involvement with them. There's some level of engagement, especially with the two association, not the way that it should be, but there are some engagement. And I know that they are consulted on matters relating to the competition, the rules and regulation and guidelines. I mean, they don't always agree with what Spicemas sets out, and Spicemas, and I must say, government policies as well. But there are some engagement, not as it should be. There are room for improvement, and I'm looking forward to be part of that improvement and to create that atmosphere where we could have a better working relationship with the artists on the whole.
Mr. Dolland, in terms of the general product that we have as Spicemas, that is Carnival, your thoughts on it?
Well, let me just two things. I just want to just go back a bit to the you spoke about the opportunities created for individuals who would have moved from calypso to soca because it presented better opportunities for them performing out there. I think I would have heard Inspector made reference to that some time ago, that the soca would have done quite a bit for him in terms of his ability to earn. However, I think Inspector would be the first to agree that many of the shows that he performs at, what really and truly bring the people to their feet, are not necessarily the new soca songs that he composed, but more so the older calypsos that he sings, because that is what really and truly. So there is a place for that, and that is what keeps the crowd jumping. And I think he'll be the first to agree with that. With regards to the question of participation, I can recall some time ago, the chairlady of the chairman, we refer to her, Shoma Wells, did mention that.
She's on the live looking on as well.
Okay, lovely. Mentioned that Carnival, there's always, most times, there are always controversy, with the exception of 1986 under the stewardship of Hugh Dolland. And I'm saying this because we put together a very strong team of individuals who understood Carnival and who were committed to the development of Carnival. And most important of all, we recognize the fact that we cannot continue to plan without the key stakeholders being sitting on the board. They must know what is happening. And we had the Steel Band Association, Mass Band Association, Calypso Association. They were members of the planning committee or the board of directors of the Carnival Development Committee. So they knew everything that was being planned. I distinctly recall, and it's instructive to note this. Darky was the president of the Calypso Association at the time. And when we sat down there trying to struggle in terms of how to do our budgets and whatnot, I recalled Darky said, but I thought all you had money. I got more money than all of you. And that was a wake-up call, because the demands that they are making is simply because they are not in tune with the reality of what is taking place on the ground. We were getting at the time $5,000 in order to begin planning Carnival, and at the end of it all, refunded it back to government.
5,000.
5,000 EC. And in that year, we were able to still give the Calypso Monarch a car for the first prize, and the Carnival Queen a car.
When was the last time somebody got a car?
I'm not too sure.
It's been a very long time.
But then again, we explained what we were attempting to accomplish at the time. We said, "Here, listen, the second and third prize is not going to be consistent with the first prize. But what we want to do, we want to send the Calypsonians back to the drawing board. Go back there, and this is what we are setting out here for you. You can win the car and what have you. And we need to change the thinking." And from there on, that was in 1986. You see that general movement, and we saw an improvement of the Calypso art form at the time, and the more competitive competitions, the March Gras semifinals and what have you taking place. And there were a number of innovations. For example, we actually moved the semifinals, which used to be in St. George. You only had about 100 persons and what have you. We moved it to St. Andrews. That was in 1986. We also moved Carnival from downtown St. George's to the Carenage.
Do you think that was a wise move?
Oh, sure. Because what was happening at the time, now, mind you, Carnival down in the middle of the town, in terms of the acoustics of the steel band and what have you, I mean, it's second to none. Seeing the bands coming down Market Hill and everything, great. But then what was happening is that because of the participation that you had, the large participation, there was a lot of interlocking of bands. So a band would be coming along Granby Street. You'll have to direct them up to turn left into Grenville Street. You have another band coming through Halifax Street. And then you have one on Melville Street. And then you had a scenario where we just couldn't move. And that was one of the reasons that we had to take into consideration the importance of doing that in order to really free up the space. What I'm saying is that we looked at challenges and we tried to be creative. And those are the things that basically we thought of and we continue to look at in order to see how best we could enhance the product. And I think we did a reasonably good job, but surely we need to continue to be creative, we need to be adventurous, and we need to take risk. And this is what I'm not seeing at this point in time. You did ask a question I would like to go back to. I picked up from Chan and Inspector earlier on. You did ask the question which I did not answer.
Which was?
No, that was asking you.
Oh, we'll get back to that. Let me just get Spicky. I see you raising your hand. You want to come in? Elimus.
No, I want to make a point. And the point I'm making, I'm not knocking calypso. I'm saying it as I see it. Just like how Scholar and Business say, they singing as they see it, I'm saying it as I see it. And what I'm telling all of you here is the honest truth. When they have a show in Spice Basket or the Trade Center, the macho people come out. And the macho people know the classics from the 70s from right on. So we play a match. Calypso don't cross boundaries. And that's the honest truth. Calypso don't cross boundaries. Over the years, the calypso been suffering. Even the calypsonian. For example, when Carnival done and promoters sending for artists to perform every year for the past 10, 15, 20 years, or for the past 15 years, or 10, one set of artists. The Lava Man, the Boise, just to name it. I don't want to go into everything. At the moment, in town, New York City, you don't have no calypsonian out there doing show. Because they don't bring out an audience. And that's what promoters book artists. When you bring out people, it's the younger artists that get in the work. Same thing with Trinidad. The Iowa Judge, the Patrice, the Marshall. And we could argue on that, and that's the honest truth. I'm not knocking the calypso and say it don't good. I listen to it every day, but it don't cross boundaries. Let me give you an example. Look at the Mardi Gras now. The Mardi Gras is 300-400 people. Soca Monarch night is Friday night, 10,000 plus, or 8,000, 9,000 plus. The Soca Monarch is, the Calypso Monarch is Sunday night, 300-400 people. Why the Mardi Gras struggling? Why is he in trouble? Huh? And the same thing in Trinidad. The only place that's surviving in Calypso in the Caribbean at the moment is Dominica. All other countries is suffering. So it's just a point I'm trying to make. When Carnival done, is the groovy artist or the soca artist that get work, the Calypso? Call a young person now. Ask them who is the Calypso Monarch of Grenada at the moment. They might struggle to answer the question. Ask them who is the soca monarch. So there is a problem inside it that we need to fix. Why the Mardi Gras not happening? I would like for the panel to answer the question when I'm done. You understand? So I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, as I see it, it's not crossing boundaries, and Calypsonian will tell you they're suffering because they're not getting work because promoters don't book them. So I'm not knocking it. I just say it as I see it.
Gotcha.
Well, Aruna, what I could say probably because Inspector no longer takes part in Calypso competition or the Mardi Gras, hence the reason why it has died. You know, so Specky probably need to come back into the Mardi Gras. I recall a few years ago he came back, and the total amount of patrons did increase. So I think the opportunity is there for you to return, at least to bring back the crowd to the Mardi Gras. Aruna, what I could also mention that you speak about Dominica, and Calypso still is alive in Dominica. And I think one of the reasons for that, Dominica doesn't have a soca monarch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they don't have a soca. There's no emphasis on
There's
soca
nothing
monarch.
to compete with it.
They have soca, but no soca monarch. You know? And
so
I think with
with
the introduction of soca monarch, in our case, hence the reason why Calypso suffer, because we have become a hype society. You know, but yet for all, on a 10th night for, let's say, Kaiso Bad, there's a tremendous turnout, of course, in there. You look at the semifinals in Grenville. There's also a good turnout there. As a matter of fact, we were planning on experimenting on the March Gras in terms of bringing it out to the rural
area.
district, because we found that there's a lot more support there. But it's something that is in the making, and we're looking at it.
Because I remember over the years, the tents was something that you looked forward to being a tent, to go to the tents before the Mardi Gras. You probably had 2-3 nights at a tent, and you moved to another one, then St. David, and there are several tents you visited.
You go around,
You were around, and they had their own little shows prior, so you had a feel of what to expect on the Mardi Gras night or the semifinals. When you get to semifinals, you know what to expect in terms of you've heard this already, so you know the music, you know the song, so you could go and support and stuff like that. But it's sort of dwindled over the years in terms of the amount of tents who put on events, and then you have this back and forth with the Spicemas Corporation and subventions, and it has always been some wrangling.
Yeah, it becomes a lot more business oriented.
So Dolland?
Yeah.
I know that this is obviously something we can debate for quite some time, and we may not necessarily have the time to do so. But I think it's important to make the point in terms as it relates to the whole question of not just calypso, but let us look at Carnival in general. In terms of the steel band, is we look at the calypso, we look at mass bands and what have you. We have a tendency where we love to identify with success, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what will happen is we see that it is perceived that calypso is dying, and as a result of that, we just abandon ship and we jump on the soca board because there are big numbers there. We go into town on Juve morning and we realize that we have 10,000 jab, music going, everybody jumping, having a good time, and then we automatically Grenada, land of 100,000 jab, and jab is the way to go. And on your program on Monday, I think both the chairman and the CEO pointed out that the strength of Carnival lies in our Juve and Monday night mass. Our strength of Carnival lies in our Juve and Monday night mass, simply because the numbers are there. So can we not take up the challenge and ask ourselves, where are we going wrong? And if you listen to what Mr. Michael Archibald would have said on your program yesterday, as it relates to Panorama, when there was some creativity there, I would have happened to have been the chairman of the Cultural Foundation at the time, and Colin Dow was the chairman of the CDC, and Mr. Archibald was the chairman of the Steel Band Committee. And because of the innovation that was used then to bring people back to Panorama, he said to you that there were over 7,000 persons at the show, and it was produced by Ricardo Keynes Douglas. And I am saying that once we are willing to take up the challenges to address our shortcomings,
like you said,
these areas can be addressed. We do not have to abandon them. And this is where I think we need to address some of the challenges that are faced. And let us not abandon, because that is what appears to be happening. Nothing is mentioned of the mass bands. Because we look at, for example, the registration that you have, for example, for Monday Night Mass. I proposed many years ago, I said, why can't we not include in that registration fee an additional $5, which will go towards the development of the mass bands? Why can't we not look at the possibility of all bands? For example, St. Paul's Steel Band, they play for the mass band.
Yes.
And we are saying, why can't we not look at giving each band maybe a 5,000, 10,000, whatever it may be, anyone that would employ the services of a steel band. You could have your DJ also, like St. Paul's usually do. But try to do something. You cannot have a Panorama and you paying out over $100,000 to the steel band. And then basically, we boast of our young people playing the steel band. But at the same time, Monday and Tuesday, they throw the steel band stick in a corner and they in tongue jumping up behind the DJ. So those are the things that we need to address. And I'm not hearing plans as to how you're going to address that, how you're going to bring the steel band back into Carnival. You can't say Carnival is mass, calypso, and pan. And then they almost completely eliminated out of that, and there don't seem to be any attempts. Now we are talking now about going back to the schools and getting the calypsonians and whatnot. So in other words, we have to go back to the future, because all that was done in earlier years. This is nothing new. Joan St. Bernard used to be going to the schools as the chairperson of the CCF, the Children Carnival Frolic. People like Claudia, Joseph, and Monica Sammy, and these persons. They were involved in that, and we got the schools to get involved. So we need to take on those challenges now. It can't be the easy way out and continue to just support the things that are doing well and abandon, the other areas of our culture.
Like you said, the risk factor is missing.
Right.
Elimus,
Mm-hmm.
as an artist, what would you say are some of the most celebrated moments for you? What were, or what would you describe those as?
Well, I want to make that very, very quick because I had so much. 1985, when I first performed at the Queen's Club, while singing, the audience showed me that love, and they were sending money on stage for me. While I'm singing, I could collect money. While I'm singing, dance in the country, I'm picking up money on the stage. Recently, I don't find it sending money on the stage. I don't know what's up. I don't know if Mr. Donald tell them we get old and bright now and want to abandon calypso, so don't give him no money. And me and my partner, Sean, always arguing, so I believe he tell them that. Arguing, but for the right reason. 1986, I also came third in the March Gras. And I was the youngest Aruna. That was my first time in the March Gras, because 85 I was too young. And I came third, Smokey first, and Dramo second, Inspector third. 1989 was my first National Calypso Monarch. That night, Wizard was powerful with Tellstone and IMF, so everybody had their eyes on the Black Wizard. I performed. When I finished, changed my clothes for Juve in song as usual, and they told me I won. And if you look at the clip on YouTube, I was like in a different world. I still couldn't believe I won in 89. 1993, I came last in Simmons. Almost did not make it to the final. And I came and I won the crown that year, I came and I won the crown that night. Although I changed some, because I sang big up in the finals, which I did not do in Simmons. 97, 98, so I'm on a king. When you win, you always feel, and then I won the road match about 4 times. So it's a lot to mention. But before I leave, I would like to say congratulations to SMC. And there is room for improvement, like any other thing. So continue working. I also like that the pandemic came and you all did not sit down home. You still stay in the office and do work. And I applaud you on that. And I would like for SMC and Culture to get involved with one of the best show in Grenada, Pecky Show. Also helping to bring back
you just had to plug. Thank you so much, Elimus. I know you're on the job, so thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. Now, in terms of the overall the competitions over the years, Chang and Mr. Dolland, how has the competitions held by SMC, namely for music, improved over the years?
I would want to say that the competition has created a great level of professionalism among our artists. Because of that rise in prize monies and prizes, artists saw the competition as a way of earning that prize, and they came out with a serious competition, serious approach towards the performances and the props and etc. And they for themselves invest quite a bit in what they do. And I believe that the competition helped them. If you notice that a number of our artists over the years has made it as far as the International Soca Monarch. And I believe that has a lot to do with the professionalism that has been created, the atmosphere that has been created. And we must also remember that over the years, SMC would have created that atmosphere, where we also use a lot of directors, and in terms of I say direct, but producers to produce these events, and I do believe that, and then again the whole idea of the structure that we put in place, it helps in the whole development of the art form.
So, Dolland, I have a different question for you, though. What are your thoughts on the overall Spicemas brand?
Spicemas brand.
Mhm.
There are a number of areas that concerns me. But however,
Mhm.
I would like to compliment. I listened to the chairman and the CEO. Obviously, they're very committed to the development of Spicemas here in Grenada, and I think that is very encouraging. They seem to be energized in terms of what they are doing at this point in time. But however, I think the whole question of a very clear mandate as to how they ought to function, I think that is a bit cloudy because they seem to have some sort of overlapping between the role of the SMC. You have the Ministry of Culture, you have the Cultural Foundation. I listened to the then to Ali Gilliard day before on Monday speak to the question of the formation of the SMC. But I think the act in itself, they seem to have some level of contradictions there as it relates to the role that each one of those grouping needs to obviously do. And that in itself can create a problem because you have the cultural foundation basically that used to be the parent body, and then you would have the CDC, which would be the Carnival Development Committee or the Spicemas Corporation, and all the other activities and so on will come under that. So they all sit as one. So you'll have the SMC would be represented on the board. You'll have all the independence committee. You'll have the Regatta. All the various grouping would be there. So there is one objective. So there is no overlapping at all in terms of what do we do to develop Carnival. In other words, the vision of Spicemas cannot be different to the Cultural Foundation. And they need to be able to work in sync. So the synergy at this point in time is somewhat compromised and sometimes conflicting, which in itself, many a times, do not lend itself to a harmonious relationship, which can compromise the work of both organizations. Mm-hmm. So I think this is something that we need to address, and we have to have a very clear vision as to where we would like to see Carnival. As I said, these two individuals, listening to them, I know they are very committed, and I would like to take this opportunity to extend my congratulations to them as they celebrate the 10th anniversary, and to wish them continued success in the future.
And that's
Arona, before we end on Mr. Donald there, Mr. Hugh, I must say that there's a document that's going to be coming out, and that document, it's a project that was set up to look at the carnival within the sub-region, the OECS region, and I was part of that work of those interviews and those workshops, and our carnival would have been given, high grading. We received the top grade in the sub-region, second to Trinidad. Our Soca Monarch is one of the best Soca Monarch around. Our Panorama. So that document is on its way out. Also, the documents also and the document has to do with the whole marketing and the whole branding of Spicemas, as you would have asked the question. Mm-hmm. And that document is going to be sold out. It is with the Minister of Culture to have a look. It is also with Spicemas. And there are a couple of areas that they mentioned that we could improve on in order to even make the product an even better product, and specifically in terms of the funding, the type of monies that we would get from central government, to stage Carnival. All those are areas that are looked at, and it also, that project in particular is a project that is going to help us with our branding and also our marketing.
Fantastic. All righty, gentlemen, thank you so very much for checking in with us this morning. Really, really enjoyed the conversation as always, and looking forward to having you back again. I mean, have more time to go in depth because there's a lot of questions. A lot of folks been asking questions on the live that we didn't even touch, but hopefully we'll be able to, meet up again to continue the conversation. So thank you so much for being part of this special Ladies Room edition. Of course, together with the Spicemas Corporation and their 10th year anniversary. Special thanks to you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So welcome. And that just about takes care of our program this morning. We will be back tomorrow with another one right here on Power 95. So I trust you guys will join us. Thanks so much again to our partners for making it possible. Western Union, Ariza, Spicemas Corporation, Sisson Spain, George F. Huggins and Company Limited, and not forgetting Beacon Insurance and Ariza Credit Union. Catch us again tomorrow, same time, same place. All those on the live, thank you so much for your participation and of course for sharing it. Truly appreciate you. Catch us again tomorrow, same time, same place.